the diverse people who have those similar stories, so you understand that it's not the same stories out there in the world. Okay? And so, our first panelist is Ruki Ravi Kumar, and adjust, we're flexible. Now, probably here. Get closer to the action.
No. We're gonna go in the center over there. Gotcha. Sorry.
And so Ruki is the Director of Education at Cooper Hewitt. She loves being a design educator and leader of the dynamic team that strives to inspire, educate, and empower people through design. Originally from Chennai, India, right? Did I say that right? Okay. She holds a bachelor's degree in History of Fine Arts and Drawing and Painting from Stella Maris College, India, and a Fine Arts and an MFA in Graphic Design from Iowa State University. She draws from her international experience in practice and teaching to develop design literacy programs for audiences of all ages nationwide. Prior to her present role, she was an associate dean, professor of graphic design and the award-winning designer. She served in numerous leadership roles at all levels of the AIGA, the Professional Association for Design, and in 2015, she was awarded the title of AIGA Fellow for her advocacy and leadership as a design educator. When she's not teaching, she's leading her team, speaking, or consulting. She's experiencing the world through travel and food. Once again, welcome, Ruki. Our second panelist is Stephanie A. Smith. I forgot.
I have a picture and everything.
Stephanie is the Director of Diversity and Inclusion at the One Club. And a lot of people who've been at City Tech know about the One Club because this Friday is going to be Here All the Black People again. And a lot of us go to her boot camps that we do, and a lot of City Tech people place 1, 2, and 3. So we're always in the running at boot camps, right? Right, Liz? So Stephanie firstly believes change can occur through building effective leadership and diversity strategy, including talent sourcing, business policy, succession planning, work culture, and leader cultivation. I can't read today. I'm a little nervous, right? Okay. It happens, right? I know.
Yeah.
Right? I tell my students, just gotta relax.
I just use the biggest words in all the dictionary too.
I know, so you just messed me up. As the Director of Inclusion and Diversity for the One Club for Creativity, Stephanie partners with sponsoring agencies, corporate partners, and brands to expose students, recent grads, and young professionals to advertising careers through the One Club's global diversity and educational strategized programs, creative boot camps, and the multicultural career fair called Here Are All the Black People. Additionally, she sits on the board of National Diversity Council Tri-State Chapter as a chair of membership and holds a bachelor's degree in advertising from Salem State University and 2 master's degrees, one from the University of Massachusetts, Boston Women's in Politics and Policy Programs, and another from Baruch College of Public and International Affairs. And last but not least, Shatton Winston. Shatton is an imaginative storyteller who connects humanity with technology. As a lifelong resident of Queens, New York, he's been exposed to many customs and cultures, all of which have helped him shape worldwide views of diversity and inclusion, both personally and professionally. As an associate creative director / copywriter, he's responsible for leading business initiatives for many of the world's largest brands. Past clients included Citi, Bank of America, Ford Motor Company, the Atlanta Falcons, amongst many others. Today, his personal endeavors is actively to guide students and young professionals on the journey within their creative service industries. Welcome, Shannon. Mic goes really, really close. Do we all want to like use it?
It's like Gerald Levert.
I know. You gotta do like you know, like this, like my Jay-Z move. Just.
You know, just don't mic drop. It'll make it worse.
No. So, like I mentioned, I want us to share our stories. I want us to go into why we're doing what we're doing today, right? And I'm gonna first tell mine briefly, and then I really want to get into theirs. And then we're gonna go into a Q&A to asking questions, and then we have these workshop worksheets in front of you, because I want to see if there's any ways that we understand what you can pick up from what we're talking about, and it can help start to inform the way maybe you can think about how to tell your story, right? So it's active listening. It's not just here and, ooh, look at this. It's like, are you paying attention? And can we understand, are there techniques that we're doing that you can actually utilize that when you have to pitch yourself, or when you have to sell yourself on what you do, or you have to explain to your parents what you do as a designer, right? That's like the hardest thing to do. What do? I design. What does that mean? I have no idea. I don't know how to explain it, right? So, I can start off with this concept. I am a failure. Everything I've done, I failed at, but it's gotten me to this place. When I was in my undergrad and we had to go from associates to a bachelor's and I had to apply to get into that, I didn't get in. I failed, right? When I went to go for my master's and I applied to one school thinking like, come on, it's my master's. I got that rejection letter. I failed. 2 years ago when I went for a writing workshop and I was already a teacher and it was to do better design writing, during the weekend-long workshop, I couldn't compose the story that I wanted to compose compared to everybody else in the room, and to me, I failed. But when I failed in undergrad, I made a conscious decision to bust my ass and get back and to think about what I really wanted to do, and I applied again to FIT and got in. When I didn't get into my master's program, because of course I thought I was being cute and only go to one, I applied to 4 schools. I got into 3 of the 4 and got a full scholarship to the one I went to. When I didn't get that writing, I couldn't figure out how to write and things, it taught me that I wasn't really meant to write right now. And so what I did is I turned my idea of stories into my podcast. And so if I can't write about it, well, we can have conversations. And all I gotta do is tape them, right? So instead of me being something that I need to write about my ideas and share that verbally, no, I'm gonna do it orally. And that's how my story comes, because everything that I've done, I failed at. But I don't think of failure as the bad thing, right? And when I tell my students about failing, it's not getting an F. It's about taking a risk. It's about believing in yourself and about making sure that you learn from that quote-unquote mistake, right? Because now I can be up here, right, humbly next to like this. This is like, I'm gonna sit down quick, but this is great. And so that's my story. And I want to hear who wants to go first in their story. Oh, Stephanie just,
Sure. Yeah, I'm not gonna use that.
Oh,
Can everybody hear them?
I will project, okay?
Yeah.
Clap once if you can hear me. No. I said clap once if you can hear me. Clap twice if you're paying attention. Someone back there did not clap, so we're doing this one more time. Clap twice if you're paying attention. All right, now that I have everyone's attention, I have a very interesting background, right? I am a creative director in the creative services industry, but I was not always that. My first career began in finance. I learned very quickly it was not for me. I did not have passion for it. I was not dedicated. I did not care at the end of the day. I went home. That is not what you want out of your life and your career, right? You want something that you can feel good about, you can have some level of care for, and you want people to have empathy for you caring about something else, right? I had none of that. Best thing in the world that ever happened to me is I got laid off. because they recognized I did not care, and there was someone else to take my role. Perfect. What that did was that sent me to St. John's University, to the advertising program there. St. John's is not a creative powerhouse, but what they are good at is teaching people the business of advertising. So that's what I learned there, the business of advertising. So when I started building my portfolio and preparing for graduation, like many of you soon will be, I thought about the agencies I wanted to work at, right? Wieden and Kennedy, and Y&R, and Anomaly, and Droga. But those places would not want me. I don't have the portfolio. I don't have the skills. I do not have the pedigree. So someone was very honest with me, a professor in fact. Very intimate conversation. She said the chances of you going to these places are probably pretty slim because you don't have this pedigree. Look at multicultural agencies. At that time, I had no idea what they were. Who knew that there was an audience for African American marketing, Latino marketing, LGBTQ marketing, right? The point is that there's always an opportunity provided you understand the world around you. Also, it's very important to recognize just because you don't end up where you want to be doesn't mean you can't have a great portfolio and you can't do great work and meet great people, make a lot of money, because we make a lot of money in this. So I say that all to say that you have to figure out what it is that works for you, the direction that you want to take, the course you want to take. If you're about producing the greatest work in the world, that starts with you. That does not start with a creative brief. It starts with you having the initiative, the will, the desire that I did not have in finance. That starts here in creation.
Wow. I myself, I think I'm very different from you.
Okay.
I was about to say similar, but well, I am a serendipitous type of kind of person. I'm not so far removed. What's the best way to say this? I did not have a strategic pathway in where I fell in today. And when I was in your shoes, I went to school for advertising, and when I graduated in 2009, to be honest, I probably had a shit book because I found out about advertising in sophomore year, which, again, I didn't have the pedigree. And then plus, I was also using Quirk, just to let you know how old I am. I just look like a spring chicken. So, you don't know about that. No one knows about that. I know Quirk.
That's way before Photoshop. That's way before.
I got her.
Thank you.
I got it.
Someone understands.
InDesign 1 was around.
Right? Like 0 negative. But I have to say that I was told when I was younger that walk through each and every door. Although when in 2009 no one was hiring me for advertising, I was like, how can I use these skills? What can I use these skills? I'm dope as shit. Like, how can I use these skills? And that's when I pivoted into politics. That's why I saw that utilizing my advertising and marketing skills were the exact same as if I was promoting a product or promoting a person for a political seat. I just basically went a roundabout way. I went to politics for my first master's and politics for my second master's. In my second master's, I ended up falling in love with diversity and finding my way around communities of creatives, and then never did I ever know that, hey, they're gonna need some diversity people to help push doors open and push accessibility to people that don't have the pedigree, that don't have the, the actual schooling, or don't have like the friends in higher places, shall I say. But I say all this because I kind of felt like I missed the boat when I didn't get placed or I didn't get the job that I wanted in advertising and this, that, and the other. But although I missed the boat, I feel like I was put on the biggest speedboat when I found my passion for diversity. And then that passion for diversity put me right back in the advertising game, but on the biggest yacht called One Club, right? And then so now, although I created my own consultancy and I did the little small thing, had some small things, pretty big things, but no Droga 5 things, right? But I'm very happy to be the person who's the door to help people get that access. Although I didn't make it, that's perfectly fine. But how can I help someone else get there? And that's where I sit, the gateway that I sit. I talk to all the Droga 5s. I talk to all the publicist groups. I talk to all, and not just me, it's two other amazing women over there as well. But like we have the ears of all these agencies that are looking for diverse young professionals like yourself to bring in a new perspective. And now we're also helping the agencies themselves understand what is diversity. How can you give a conducive culture and this, that, and the other. So to sum it all up in a pretty little bow, I personally think that you can go through each and every door. I personally think that, to my panelist's point, if you don't get exactly where you are, don't give up, because it might just pivot to the left and you're like, oh, I'm on a yacht.
These are two very difficult stories to follow. So I was that kid that was a nightmare to my parents because I took things apart and didn't know how to put them back together. I really thought very differently, and I was always told I was weird. To give you an example, I've told my team this story many times, but when I was 10 years old, when I jumped up and down my spring bed and broke it, a lot of people would have probably taken the broken spring and tied it up, but I didn't. I took a sock, I rolled it up into a little ball and made a cushion for the broken spring so it wouldn't make the sound, because I did not solve for the problem of a broken spring. I solved for the problem of sound getting me in trouble with my parents. I have had this kind of thinking since I can remember. And I remember pretty early on, one of my most vivid memories is my mom bawling and just saying, why can't you be normal? Because I challenged her as a parent. And while a lot of people called me weird for a long time, I found that by not fitting in, which for the longest time in my life I tried very hard to fit in. And I'm an immigrant, so that's like my number one goal, right? Fit in. Try to belong where you are. But I actually find that my greatest strength is not fitting in, it's actually kind of standing out. It's being that person who thinks differently in every room. And I think my path, which has gone from, I've had a lot of weird jobs, by the way. My first job out of college was I was a TV game show host.
Oh, wow.
That should be in your bio.
I know, right?
I've tried all kinds of things, from advertising to event planning. I've done displays in hotel windows, all kinds of things, just to find that, what is it, that thing that makes my voice clear, my message clear, and where I could fit in. And at this point, so I've been a graphic designer, I've been an educator for a long time, and I found that my voice and my message is clearest as an educator. I love talking to people about design. I love telling people how it works. I love teaching even the non-designer a little bit about design, because design and design thinking is about being a resourceful human being. When you can look at any problem and you think, how can I solve it? You already have the design mindset. And I like to see people take that and run with it. And so that's where my present job has taken me. So I have my dream job at the Cooper Hewitt, which is the Smithsonian Design Museum, and I'm the head of design education. So that's my story.
We are efficient.
Yes.
I thought we were gonna talk a lot longer, and we didn't. So
You can ask us questions.
I know. Now I'm thinking questions because I thought we were gonna go longer. I didn't have to think of questions. I was gonna have you guys think of questions, but you guys will get there. But
She can't show up here.
I know. Well, she should do it. She should do the hosting, even though we didn't know that.
No, George, it's your show.
I know. Spotlight. So. Oh.
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Except, do you think we can go back to the mic? It's a little with the air conditioning back here. It's a little.
Better. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Gotta hold like this then, you know.
I gotta get, do you know, have a DJ and a microphone.
Yeah,
I gotta
Thursday,
get
right?
used to it.
Okay, yeah. All right.
I think I have a question. Yeah.
So go ahead.
Okay, to all three of you,
Yeah.
how did you take your biggest weakness weakness or perceived weakness and turn it into a strength?
That's a good question.
I
You want it first? Just take it first.
I found that your biggest weakness is usually a weakness because other people tell you so. It's usually not a weakness. It's because it's not what the majority would do. So if you shift your perception and embrace it as, why is it a weakness? And is there a different application for that? Sometimes what's a weakness in one situation is a strength somewhere else. And so that's what I would take it. So wherever, if it's a weakness, you're probably in the wrong place, doing the wrong thing. And if you just try to adjust it and reframe it, it becomes a strength somewhere else.
Yeah, I can piggyback off that. I was always told that I was too much, that was my weakness, that I'm like, I bring too much energy, but I just didn't find my tribe yet. Because like here, I can bring all the energy and just people are like, oh yeah, that's Stephanie. But I did have to learn how to use it in certain settings. Like for example, I can't bring exclamation point Stephanie to the finance department because finance department would be like, I don't trust her with money, right? But I could take, exclamation point Stephanie to the happy hour. But and then also I had to learn that if I was really excited about an opportunity, I had to just not push it down, but kind of revert that energy someplace else, like the toes. I guess that was pushing it down. But because some people don't know what to do with all that, but just know when to use it. Oh no, what would you say?
That makes a lot of sense. I hate talking into microphones. Can I try to yell?
No, I'll hold it for you.
So we all have to be honest with ourselves, right? So if you know you're not good at something, this is an opportunity to become better at it, right? So for me, my biggest weakness was I was never able to really tell my story. So when I used to come in with the black and white bank resume, creative directors are looking at this like, this makes no sense to me. Like, this is not JP Morgan Chase, right? So that taught me very quickly, I have to learn how to adapt, and I have to find myself within this kind of weakness that I have or that people are perceiving of me. And the first step is always to be honest, because if you don't recognize that I'm not good at this thing and I refuse to get better at it, you'll never be good at that thing. And that will always be used against you, like today and 40 years from now.
Thank you.
I'd like to share a resource with all of you. There's two schools of thought that you can look at your strengths and weaknesses and you kind of turn your weaknesses into strengths, right? There's another school of thought where you take your strengths and you make them stronger. There's a great book called The Strengths Finder. It's a $20 book on Amazon, and when you buy it, it gives you a code. And you get to take an online, it's a rapid fire quiz kind of thing. But it's all just what would you do kind of questions. And at the end of that, you only have 3 seconds to answer each one. So you have to commit and do it quickly. I made Megan do it. That's Megan back there. But when you take it, at the end of the day, it tells you what your strengths are. And then it gives you tips for how to make those strengths stronger. So if you're kind of at that point where you're trying to figure out, well, I'm sort of good at this and I'm kind of good at that, this is definitely a weakness, that may be a good resource for you to figure out, these are definitely my strengths and I'm going to make them stronger. Yeah.
So piggyback on that, I mean, who else has questions? Come on.
The wheels are turning, I see you. Yeah, I see you. The wheels are turning.
Calling me out.
Yeah.
Yes.
How did you guys begin looking for jobs after graduating or searching for careers or anything along those lines?
I'll take that one. I looked at what I really like to do. Okay. To be honest, I at first just got any job, bartending job. So then I could start to look at things that I like to do. At the time, I knew that I could always fall back on my marketing skills. And I knew that there were small businesses in the area that were going to need some design work, some ad work, and so basically I just reached out to people that I knew, and I was like, hey, I will redesign your logo, I will redesign this, we'll put a marketing campaign together for you. And so I was just honing my skills a little bit more. And then I just liked school, so I went from one school to another school and then found myself some more. And I was even sharing with Jared Davis that now I'm even like looking into calligraphy and stuff because I have time one day.
I would say show up to things because you have nothing to lose by asking somebody, what do you do and can you make an introduction?
Oh, yeah.
If you're in design, you're probably an introvert. A lot of us are. We're all introverts and extrovert jobs. And so I would say one of the things is showing up places so you can make those connections because connections go a long way in our field. Paying attention, so sometimes you hear of opportunities, just showing up at things and asking. You have absolutely nothing to lose by saying, are you hiring? And a lot of people, if they're not, are at least willing to tell you someone else who is. And that's sort of how I started. I think one of my strengths is that I'm good at networking. I like to go and meet people. I'm interested in what they do, and I ask a ton of questions. And this is how I've gone from job to job to job. To make a transition from being a professor to being in a museum, a lot of people would have said that that was impossible because there's such protected industries, but really it's connections with people. One person who said, you should try this and there's a position open, and then bothered to make a nomination for me, which helped. So it's that, and it's being nice to people because it doesn't matter who you know today. Sometimes it's a classmate that can connect you, and just being nice to people and asking questions has really worked for me my entire career.
I agree. I definitely done that. I definitely call people and say, "Can I have at least 15 minutes for coffee?" I'll bring the coffee. That's a big thing. We did have coffee. I didn't know we're open.
Yeah, I would say you have to decide this is what you want, right? So when you start thinking, I'm just going to get a job after college, you're just going to get your job. But you have to decide, I'm going to be this person, and I will fight until I become that person. In my particular instance, after my first internship, I interned at Spike DDB, that's Spike Lee's ad agency, right? I sat right outside of his door. So anytime I heard him on the phone, like, he would see me leaning in. He was like, yo, this guy is weird. But what people learned about me is that I was very curious, right? I was always wondering how, like, advertising worked. So I would ask, like, the ACD at the time, tell me, why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? The whole point is to make sure you're always interested. Make that live across your entire career. Be interested in other people, what they're doing, where they're going. Don't be afraid, as they said, don't be afraid to invite someone for coffee. Like, let me just have 15 minutes of your time. Can I give you a call? Can I talk to you on LinkedIn or whatever? This whole thing is about relationships.
Yeah.
So protect your relationships. And I'm telling you, I have killed quite a few that have really hurt me, I swear to you. And I'll be 100% honest with you. But your attitude goes so far. Having the right energy goes so far, and remaining curious goes so far. So when you start to cultivate these relationships, always keep that top of your mind.
Yeah, I think I would piggyback off that. Like, use this for people in the back.
Are y'all hearing me? I can hear that.
You got that big voice.
Projector.
Definitely, but you also want to be resourceful. You also want to be helpful. But like, and then also understand that they're busy. They're super busy. They try to get back to you. My biggest thing is that if you don't respond, I don't get sour about it. I'll just send them an email like, just checking if there's anything I can help you with, or try to help them with something, or and then that's a good way to build a relationship. And look for a mentor. Look for someone, just and specifically ask them, will you be my mentor? I'll be an easy lift. Let them be an easy lift for real. Like, don't call them every day. Kind of like, have something set up. And easy lift meaning like you answer your own questions, kind of almost. I don't know.
Can I answer that?
Yes.
Even though I'm not on the panel, but, right?
You guys have a network here, right? You have a network of your students. You have a network of your faculty. Your faculty and your professors know exactly how you work, right? They know you intimately, and the better you work and the more respectful in what you do, we are gonna be your biggest cheerleaders. When they ask us for who should we hire, I'm gonna tap 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 people because I know their work ethic. I know that they actually can do the work, right? So that is some of the biggest things, that showing up to an event like this, showing up that you want to actually be around people who can push you, right? Understanding what you can be doing, but then respecting the work you actually do in class, because we're the ones who are going to say, you know what? She actually is really good. She has a project, but she only works at night. I mean, she does this, but are you willing to do that? Yeah, right? Sometimes when you need that help, we are so glad to put you in connections with these people, right? But you think that we're just professors and we go home and do it, and I'm like, no, ask me. You know, it's so much easier for, if you know, I have the connection, I can put you and say, Stephanie, do you mind if I pass your email around? A student wants it, yeah.
Yeah, and then I'm expecting you to actually come with it. Like,
Right, and then don't mess it up.
Like, all right, I don't want to hold your hand too much. I'll give you some. And then write Javon. Yes.
You know, and respect the time, right? If we look out for you, then you do that same thing, and make sure you do at least fulfill that side of reaching out to them and be respectful and ask questions.
And don't forget about the people behind you. Like, I always reach back as long as I'm climbing, like on the ladder, like that.
I don't have moves like that. But I do have a Megan Mahaffey who's back there, if she wave. So if you're looking for networking opportunities, I'm going to make a shameless plug. She has a lot of postcards for things coming up involving lots of designers, because in October is National Design Week. And so we have a whole week of free programming at the Cooper Hewitt, where you can come and meet designers, chat with them, do workshops with them, hear about their stories, and ask them questions one-on-one. So if you're interested, make sure to grab a postcard from Megan. She is there waving postcards.
I'm pretty certain somebody in the audience has a question by now.
Yeah, Marvin,
Yes.
Marvin, you gotta, hold on.
Marvin wanted to go first.
Oh, yeah.
Come on, Marvin.
Okay. Two things. First is what you said before about introverted people in an extroverted world. I find myself very introverted, but I tend to switch it on and off depending on the situation, and sometimes it might come across as inauthentic. So how do I make it not come across as inauthentic to people that I'm around? And second question is, just starting out in the career, is it better to be a jack of all trades, or have a specific specialty where you want to get your name known?
Great questions. So, I'm an introvert. I've taken a lot of public speaking classes in order to feel comfortable to speak in front of people. And I find the more you do some things, the easier it gets, the more second nature it becomes. The first few times, you do look ridiculous, but it's getting over that hump. You will make some mistakes. You will have some moments where you'll freeze. Words don't come out of your mouth. For me, sometimes they come out in 2 different languages, and I can't find the right word I want to say in the right language. But I think if you're willing to practice, at a certain point, it just becomes second nature. And so for those of us who are introverted, that's the effort you have to put in, is to practice those parts where people are expecting you to show up, make eye contact, and deliver. But there's a way, I think the more you practice, there's a way to balance who you are as a person and what is that expectation of you. What was your second question about
My
a
second
jack of all trades
yeah,
or
yeah.
master of none? In your career, you will make a lot of transitions. And I find that the more experiences you have, the more interesting you are, because you're able to pull from multiple areas to make connections. When you have to come up with an idea, especially in the world of design, it's not always from the same place. You kind of have to make those unconventional connections. You have to make two things that never connected before connect in a way for it to be innovative. So on some level, having multiple areas of interest is good, but you have to be at a master of the thing, the craft that you're working towards. So you really have to be good at those core skills of your field. So I would say that's a balance issue too, is being diverse enough in your areas of interest so you are never hit the point of I don't know how to brainstorm or I'm stuck all the time, but being really good at the thing that you have to deliver on, which if for me it was design, you have to be good at typography and using your core tools, because that's what people are expecting from you. So that's my advice.
Sure. So let me just explain what my role is, right? I'm an associate creative director, right? So what that means is I have two primary responsibilities. One, making sure I meet the business objectives for my creative director, and two, make sure you're growing, right? So if you're bad, it makes me look bad because I'm probably not teaching you. So a skill you're going to need to do is to communicate, right? You will be talking to clients, right? And their clients are not always easy people to deal with, right? They have their own issues, they're under stress, they're under pressure, right? That pressure is gonna fall on you. So you have to figure out how to manage these relationships. Now my job is to protect you from that, but there will be times when you can't be that extrovert. You have to come, introvert. You have to come out and you have to be able to express yourself. So this is the idea. Here's what we're doing. Here's what we anticipate as an outcome. So I need you to do that. That's just part of the job, right? And what happens when you find yourself alone with a client? Y'all are just gonna sit like this? People think you're like you're strange, like if you don't try to engage with them, and that's because they don't know you, right? So once people can kind of know you a little bit and understand that this is not just some quirky thing, but it's really deep within you, I think that can help. But the top line is that you have to be able to articulate yourself, right? You have to be able to explain your work, your methodology, your process. And I'm like, hey man, how'd you get there? You can't, like I need something, right? So we can build off of this thing. So the second part, when I review portfolios, there's two things I need to know. One, are you intellectually curious? So if I'm like, I need you to learn something about oncology, tell me 3 things about it so we can get this thing started. You have to come to me with something really interesting or vibrant about it, right? So you have to be intellectually curious. I got you.
Is that like on the spot though? Like if you sit
No,
next to your mom?
I mean, come on, no, I'm not gonna. Okay. Give me 5 tips. Like, no. But the thing is, like you have to be intellectually curious as a creative person. You naturally are that, but professionally, that has to be something that you really care about. And then the second is your dedication to learning additional things, right? So one part is being interested in something, but then the second part is learning it. So when I'm like, okay, I'm stuck, can you help me out? Explain this to me. You should be able to do that. So those are 2 things that I look for when I review portfolios. And you can actually kind of tell that in the work. You can tell that in the resumes. You can tell that in cover letters. You can tell all of that by one simple thing. Have you taken the necessary steps to separate yourself from the others? That's how I've learned a lot about you. When I see my objective is to secure a position within like I already know like you're not going to be a fit here because you're not stepping outside. You're not being intellectually curious. So I already know that about you.
I don't know if that resume thing is just due to who teaches you how what to do the resume with, but anyhow. But to your point, and to all of our point, I want to say that it took me forever to be able to sit on a mic and actually show my personality. This time last year at Hero of Black People, actually. Man, I wrote that speech 2 minutes before I got on stage, and I was like, I forgot all of it. But to Ruki's part, just practice. Toastmasters is pretty dope.
I usually,
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. I'm. And the last thing, I'm so sorry to cut you off, but what I hear from creative directors, they're like, and also chief creative directors and chief creative officers and all those other people, is that they would rather you be a master of something. Like, for example, I am a copywriter, but I also have design skills. I am a designer, but I also can copyright. When they look through your book, they want to see a strong line of, if you say you are a copywriter, they want to see some strong ass shit for copywriter with some other embellishments too. So get one of those, not one of those two, but one of the things that you find and just add to it. But to Ricky's part and my other panelists' part, just make sure that. Yeah. Okay. I'm horrible. I didn't want to mispronounce it.
See, but she's owning it.
Oh, I messed up everybody's name.
Yeah.
I'm getting better now. I used to be like, oh, it's okay, I just know faces. But now I'm like, that's rude, especially coming from a diversity person. I need to like literally learn people's names. I check myself all the time. You can ask my team all the time. I'm like, should I say that? Alright, I'll stop.
But what I would just add is, know who you are, right? When you're comfortable with you, a lot of that comes out, and you're able to talk about things that you're comfortable with, right? So to understand that you're sometimes switching it on and off. That's very knowledgeable, actually. Some people don't know they're actually doing that,
Oh, yeah,
right?
true.
And that's when it feels inauthentic because it looks fake. You're noticing that maybe because I'm trying to switch from being introverted to extroverted, you're noticing that maybe it comes off a certain way. So at least you can identify what you need to try to work on, right? Some people just do it and you're like, oh, that person's just acting fake, right? Because it doesn't feel genuine. So now that's something you can make, into a strength, right? You're understanding that you do that, and you got to figure out ways to work. And when you get more comfortable, then you're able to then move that comfortability on to the next thing. Talking about your work, talking about who you are, right? That's just what it is, right? And talking about nervous, right? You messed up stuff. I messed up the intro this morning. This thing. It doesn't matter, right? We just keep on
Hey, I
going.
forgot about that.
And I forgot about it, but I brought it back up, right? So now they all know, right? But that's just one of those things. So you just kind of keep on. Huh?
Do you have any more questions?
Yeah. Go ahead.
I see a question there.
We got
I see
here,
a question
and
there.
I know you had one. So let's go to
Oh,
Brandon
now she
first.
has a question. We'll go 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. Did you have a question?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Okay.
So, thanks for coming. My name's Mohammed Floyd. I'm a website manager. Besides that, if you have ever had a professional blow in your career, how did you pick yourself up to continue trying again?
I had one yesterday. Who wants to go? You want to go?
Yeah. All right. So
Yeah.
So remember a few minutes ago when I told you about networking and being nice to people? Some battles are not worth fighting, right? So I found myself fighting a battle with a person who was much more powerful than I was. So this person was able to exhibit that power on me. So fast forward, I'm out of the picture. I'm no longer in this person's purview. A year later, I have an opportunity on the table bigger than my wildest dreams. But guess who's back in the picture? This one person who had an issue with me. So what do you think she did?
Blocked you?
She let everyone know she had an issue with me. And that ended that opportunity. And it was such a blow to me that it took me probably a good month, really to just get over it. And I guess what we always have to keep in mind is that not every battle is worth fighting. So when a creative director gives you some bad instruction, or your professor or your mom or whoever, sometimes you just have to take it. Just take that momentary L. It's fine, because you'll be able to get up and just go on from it. But you will experience instances like that in your career, because people are petty, they're nasty, they're vindictive, because they're people, right? And people, all of us have these tendencies in us. So we make sure going forward we have to pick our battles. We have to be smart about who we deal with. We have to understand the consequences of our actions. But most importantly, try to be nice to everybody to the best you can.
Yeah, I think that's just, it goes with the turf. At some point, unexpected things happen. Shit happens, life happens. It's just, that's the case. But a lot of times we say, failure, embrace it. Nobody embraces failure. You don't say, yeah, failure. It's about resilience though. So it's trying to figure out what's the best strategy to get up from this awful situation. and reaching out again into what your strengths are and who your connections are that will pull you up out of those. So, I think career blows, it's a given. It just happens. People get fired. You make the wrong career move sometimes. You end up in jobs that you thought sounded great and then aren't so great. But it's not about kind of staying in that low point. It's using all your strengths to get out of it and being resilient, and you'll always learn from it. Those moments, they stay with you. They're the things that remind you of what you are made of, and those are the lessons that you'll never forget. So sometimes let those happen quick and fast.
Yeah. Everything that they both said. And when I'm in it, I just tend to say, all right, that was pretty shitty. What can I do better? How can I do it better? And then I also allow myself to at least a day or two to cry. Just enjoy it. Just get it out. Or it's gonna come out someplace else. Like, in front of your boss when you don't want it out. Never in front of the boss. Never in front of the boss. And the question was over here.
Can I just say one more thing about
Yes, you
that?
can say all the things.
Yeah, I'm just going to say one more thing. If you want to go into creative, it's a hard job. I promise you, most nights you're not going home at 5 o'clock. Most days you're going to deal with some of the most difficult people, creatives like you, who are very difficult. You're going to deal with clients who have their own anxiety, their own stress. And one day someone may just not like you. And then that can impact your career simply because someone had a bad day. So you have to recognize that all of these things can happen. And then you have to find a little place within you to just tuck that and then do the work. Because at the end of the day, I just think you have to be responsible for what you can be responsible for. And I hate the cliches, I'm sorry about the end of the thing. But you have to be responsible for what you're responsible for. And as long as you can look at yourself and be like, you know what, I did the best job I can, that means a lot. Because there's something to be taken from that to the next opportunity and then so on and so forth.
And I think also have like a really good support system that you can at least lean on. Like, oh my God, today was horrible. Let me tell you all about it, so I don't blow up on a loss. All right.
Brandon, you got something?
Brandon.
So when it comes to finding yourself, like you found that graphic design, you can use it towards politics. When you feel like you're finding yourself, but like in Ruki's instance, the family kind of didn't resonate with who she was. How do you break out of that? Like the person that you feel like you're becoming, how do you break out of that shell of like the closest people around you who feel like, no, that's not really the way to go? How do you break out of that and become that person?
Oh wow.
I don't know. Did I word that right?
No, what I think that I'm hearing is you internally have a person that you're becoming, and other people around you are wanting you to be something else. Did I get that right? All right, good.
Wait, could I say something?
No. Yeah. This is his story.
I'm sorry. The hate is gonna.
I learned it from Warren. What I would say definitely would be, you have to be brave in those conversations. You have to be brave, and there's gonna be times that people don't understand, but you understand. People aren't gonna see the vision, but you see the vision. Anyway, there might be some times that you have to just go ghost on them and just be like a little quiet. Where you been? Oh, I've been in the lab, man. Just just doing this, or maybe just be like, listen, just trust me. This is what I want. And then also just trying different things. I am a compilation of many trials, errors, all the other types of like, hey, you want to try this? Yeah, sure. You know what I mean? Kind of like who I am. But then I found things, and I walk through doors, and I'm like, yeah, this isn't my space, and I walk right back out of them. So you're not going to know 100% who you are, because I feel like we're all kind of like people and beings in the making. But if you know down to the core what you want to do with your life, and other people are trying to push you, let's just play devil's advocate. Let's say that you go along with everybody else wants you to do, get all the other degrees, and you really want this other degree. In the end, you're gonna be like, you're not gonna be happy. I don't think you're gonna be happy.
I think it goes back to what he was saying earlier about pick your battles. My mom today could not tell you what I do. I was a department chair and she asked me, she's like, what is this piece of furniture that you are? Right? She didn't quite understand it. More recently, she pulled me aside and she's like, you have a degree in design, but you haven't done design lately. Are you not good at it? Do you need to take a class? So this is, there are some people who are never going to get what you do. But how important is that to you? I think you being happy with the way you're going in life and the path you're making, you need to make peace with that. There will always be people who don't get what you do and who will question what you do. But there will also be a lot of people out there who are big fans of what you do. And that's your support system. So I would just say, if some people don't get it, let it be. It's not, your family sometimes are the last people who will understand what you do.
Yeah.
And that's okay. Because I don't know how many, if you sit on a plane, train, anything, you tell someone you're a designer, they'll start telling you about Photoshop on their computer. For a lot of people, they're not going to get what we do. And it takes us a while to reach that place of clarity to say, this is what I do. Also, our jobs change on a regular basis. Design is that kind of field. A problem you solve today is very different from what you solve tomorrow. So it is a difficult field to explain. But if you know who you are and you're convinced you're on the right track, stick with it. And don't worry about explaining it to everybody else.
Yeah.
When you hit that point of being able to show great work, that will speak for itself.
Yeah.
What is it that you want to do? What's the conflict? Not too
it's like with graphic design, like
okay.
I want to use that as a platform to like push advocacy for different things, different rights that might not be synonymous with religion.
Okay. So the pushback you're getting is from what? It's from like your family telling you to do something else?
I would say more like the closest,
So would you have to explain to them that design is a universal term, but it has a very specific purpose. That's to solve a problem, right? So you think about a knife or a spoon or a fork. That's industrial design. What problem does that solve? How you eat, right? You think about an airplane. That's design. It's getting you one place to another safely, right? So when you think about design holistically, it's about solving problems. And it sounds like you want to solve a really big problem, and you're going to use graphics to do that. Vision, pictures, right? We've been using pictures for millions of years. Hieroglyphics, right? So, you don't have to take it that granular, but I say all this to say to you, just keep going, because what you're feeling is right.
All right, Tracksuits, your turn.
So my friends sometimes get into, including me, get into really deep ruts, and sometimes I feel like there's nothing I can do as a friend, but I don't want to just stop there because, they're my friends, I love them. And is there anything that you guys could personally recommend? Like, how would you pick your friends up from ruts and stuff? Like, how can you push your friends to go further to support them?
There's this great place called the Cooper Hewitt Smithsonian. It has over 210,000 objects in its collection that could inspire you.
You walk right into that one. I got a cushy granola one for you next.
Sometimes I think we try to sit in the same place and try to solve the same problem, and it's a matter of it's the getting out of that zone in order to bring new points of stimulus in. And I find that a lot of people just think of the museum often as I'm a tourist when I travel, I'll see a museum, or it's something I do as a day out of class, but it's actually a wealth of resource for a designer. We have a lot of professionals who start their problem-solving process at the museum. Many who actually bring their entire teams to the museum when they are stuck. So if that's a practice that you start as a student, that's something you can take with you as a professional. And our entire collection is searchable online.
I need to get better at this plug game. Now when you say rut, I think about oh my God, I'm stressed out, everything's going on, kind of rut. Or is it kind of like rut, oh bother, I don't feel like doing nothing?
Well, it can be both sides. Like, for example, they'll suddenly like they usually have like great amounts of passion, and then suddenly it'll just stop for like a couple of weeks, and then it'll come back again. Is there like, and they'll go into like depressive states, I suppose.
Yeah.
Where they're just like, I'm not good enough. I don't.
Well, okay. Key insight. Thank you for that one. I would definitely say that we all have to like remind each other that we're great, remind each other that we're awesome, but we also have to remind each other that we need self-care and take care of ourselves too. Like, there's times that we'll push ourselves too much to the brink, or there's times that we'll put a lot of stress, and I'm so guilty of this. I'll put a lot of pressure on myself where I feel like I'm not good enough, but people around me were like, dude, you're great. I'm like, well, it's not good enough. But a couple things that arose out of that is that being the friend that really cares for someone, I would definitely, maybe check in with them, make sure they're doing well, but also be like, look, dude, you gotta, like, I'm here for you, but I can help you, but I don't know, like, it's teetering on an area where I don't comfortably feel safe saying some things, because that can go one way or the other. But what I definitely would say is that, A1, you're a good friend for at least bringing it up and trying to, like, be there for your friends. 2, sometimes it might be outside of your control. They might need a little bit more support that you can give, and be okay to be that person like, do you want me to go with you? Like, let's talk to someone or whatever. Not just saying, and there's nothing wrong with mental health. Like, shoot, I talked to my therapist yesterday. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. There's just sometimes that we as a society, like, we have gotten to the point where there is so much put on us, especially younger generations, social media, all this other stuff, do this, come out, do this thing, do this other thing, and be amazing, and oh yeah, don't forget, be young. So, like, there's a lot that you guys are going through. Yeah, I think I'm gonna end it there. I don't want to say anymore.
So are we talking about more, in what realm is this? Like in terms of like work and physically doing stuff, or?
Yes, work related things like, for example, projects that are coming through, and they suddenly just, it's a blank space for them, and they're like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah. Personally, I don't think there's any such thing as writer's block. I don't think creatives get stuck. I think we lose inspiration, right? So we have to figure out how to get that inspiration. For me personally, when I have to write something that's really important and I can't do it, I write stuff I like. So it starts with like, you familiar with Ernest Hemingway and six word stories? A 6-word story. That's all. Just 6 words tells all entire narrative. So I'll do that 50 times because I like doing that. That's what I like doing as a writer. If that could be my actual job, I would do that. So that's where I kind of step away. I step away and start doing things I really want to do. And then before you know it, you're working again. And then you can start pivoting to things that you have to do, and then start finding some balance between what you're enjoying at that moment and then what you actually have to do.
Thank you.
I see more questions.
So my question is for the people who are doing like portfolio review at the moment, like portfolio classes, how do you brand yourself or brand what you want to do in your portfolio when everyone is not going to understand it? Like, how do you make it so where everyone tries to understand where you're coming from for what you really want to do?
Okay. Can I share the feedback I gave you?
Yes.
So when I reviewed your portfolio, and listen, I try to take 30 minutes because I feel like if you sent me your work, you deserve 30 minutes of my time. And a lot of CVs will not do that. And like your HR people, they don't do that at all. So I try to get an understanding of who you are. Specifically what I said to you is I thought your work was very much student work, right? So for you to do that, you have to find your voice, right? If you play with swatches, play with your swatches and make it interesting. For everyone, you have to find your own voice as a creative. Like, you have to find that. So if you're a designer, make your typography interesting. Use great photos, vignettes. I mean, I don't know, cut images in half. Play with, like, just make it interesting. Your work should never, like, when I'm reviewing a professional portfolio, I don't want to see the schoolwork. I want to see the work that inspires you, what drives you. That's how I get a good sense of what you are as a creative. Because the worst thing in the world is like literally to hire someone and you have to tell them what to do all the time. Like it's really frustrating, and I'll be 100% honest here, because my responsibility is to make you better, and I can't make you better if you're just doing what I'm telling you to do. For that, I might as well do it myself. So with all of that being said, you can find your voice, play with things, be unorthodox. But remember your principles, right? Remember principles.